My name's Alex Shimwell. I'm a professional potter living out of the Peak District near Bakewell. I've been a professional potter for 13 years after graduating from Staffs University in Stoke-on-Trent. Trained there and then under Kevin Millward a little bit and worked with a potter in Japan for a little while. So I'm just going to make one of the new pieces, which this is Valentine's black clay mixed with Valentine's V9A, so it'll be reduction fired. So because the black's got a lot of oxides in it, and it's going in reduction anyway, I'm mixing it up for being able to take the higher heat and the reduction without a bloat. So these are I'm quite interested in the material process and process of pottery, so I see it as being sort of like a form of controlled geology, and certainly think subconsciously, because of where I've grown up around the Peak District and stuff, and also just the interesting landscapes that you see around the world, I feel that they can have sort of like be subtly represented by what you do with the clay if you sort of like really concentrate on the processes and the nature of the material and the nature of the processes and how it is fundamentally making planets with what we're doing. So these are sort of inspired from sort of like the rocky outcrops and stuff. They started off in porcelain, which I'll still do, but I really like them in the pure black as well, sort of like a bit like a basalt outcrop or something. So bring this out. So these bigger ones are much more difficult to make, not so much from the throw-in, because it's a fairly simple basic cylinder other than the decoration texture, but because I'm just making something that is sort of against everything in the book, with the varying thickness and the fins that come out and all of that. The drying process, as they go bigger, there's a lot more tension happening as it shrinks and other bits don't shrink, so these can really crack apart very, very easily. So I lose more than I get out of these ones. Smoothed off. Clean off that. And what I'm doing is I just sort of dig my fingers in and start pulling out these fins. So I quite like the soda silicate and slip textures that are achieved by quite a few people and the various ways they apply that, but I found that sort of slipped and stretched texture, you don't get as much activity in it. It's always going to be sort of an expanded texture, and I sort of wanted something a bit more violent and a bit more earthy. So I started thinking about how that can be done at uni, actually, and talking to a pottery collector friend of mine, Stuart, about, he showed me some Buller's porcelain, and Buller's used to make the porcelain insulators, which are just with great big fins, and I think they used to be thrown and then carved. So that sort of made me start thinking about what is fundamentally this shape. And then I just started thinking, well, that's a bit boring, just as straight line stuff, and it's not really with the energy and stuff that I usually try to get into whatever I'm making. So I just started having a go at, and it was much less textured when I first started doing it, because it was, you develop into just how violent you can be with it. and I just sort of thinking about sort of trying to use the rib to just really sort of have a go at it. So I'm not really in control of what's happening. I'm just trying to make sure nothing's happening in a regular way. And when I was at uni, I was told by a lecturer to look at Peter Volkos. I think it's Peter Volkos. And I didn't really get his stuff then, but as I've progressed and learned more about pottery, I've sort of quite like the crunchy stuff, and his stuff's okay. I quite like the gnarly dude pottery, but again, I didn't want to be just making something that could be too in the house of what's already going. So these are what I'd say are definitely all me, without really any influence from out else at all, that I know of, because I don't think I've developed this technique. That I know of, I've developed this technique. It might have been developed independently by somebody else elsewhere without me knowing about them, sort of thing. And then just slightly expand it, which is the difficult bit. And I try to support it with the rib underneath. I'm trying to get like a very controlled or pretty well controlled form with chaos on top of it. So from my personal view, if you're just chaos, then unless the pot is sort of superb when someone handles it and stuff, a lot of people aren't going to be able to tell the difference between a very good pot that is embodying chaos and someone that doesn't know what they're doing. So I quite like that. I like the mix of tight control with chaos to show there is choice happening, and it's not just what happens. So this is pretty much how they are, and this will go into reduction, and these will be at whichever show I next do when we're allowed to do shows again. And that's it. That's one of them. That's how they're made.